Hi, my name is Jordan Mahome, and you are listening to UC3P.
Welcome to the University of Chicago Public Policy Podcast. This is UC3P, our eponymously named podcast on policy, politics, and current affairs. My name is David Raban, and I'm the production manager for what we like to call the main page. Today, we talk with Congresswoman Shelley Berkley, who represented Nevada's 1st District from 1999 to 2013. We talked with her about the Nevada caucus, the primary season, and living a good life after finishing with politics. Before we get into the interview, just a couple notes. First, we re-recorded our questions for clarity. Second, a quick reminder that UC3P is a nonpartisan organization. We do not endorse any political candidates, campaigns, or positions. Now, let's get straight into the interview. Without further ado, here's former Nevada Congresswoman Shelley Berkley.
I'm Andrew Weis with UC3P, and we're honored to be joined today by former Nevada Congresswoman Shelley Berkley. She represented a Las Vegas area district in the U.S. House for 14 years, and she is now the senior provost of Touro University Western Division. Congresswoman Berkley, thank you for joining us.
Andrew, thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. I wanted to start today with the Democratic primary.
Well, we have a lot to talk about.
You've got that right. The race is very fluid right now.
Fluid, but starting to consolidate, I think.
It seems to be, because as of right now, Super Tuesday is tomorrow, and Pete Buttigieg has just dropped out, and Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders seem to be consolidating most of the votes, although Elizabeth Warren or Mike Bloomberg still seem to have outside chances.
Yep, still in. For
sure, and she raised a lot of money in February, and of course he has unlimited money.
Yes, he certainly does. God bless him. I was at the I was very actively engaged in the caucuses in Nevada, which they were just a little while ago, but it seems like they were like 10 years ago already because things happened so quickly during primary season. But I was at the debate, and I was 4th row back, dead center. And so it was the prime location to observe everything. And I have to say, I think after the Democratic caucuses in Nevada, things started shaking out a little bit more. I didn't think it at the time, and I was fairly horrified at the debate by some of the things that were said. But the reality is, I think things started to shake out around then. And then now we are a little over a week and a half later, and things are happening.
I'm interested if you could talk more about the Nevada caucuses. They went overwhelmingly for Bernie Sanders, and I was curious on your take as to why he did so well, or what he might have done that other campaigns didn't do.
Well, I was a little surprised that he showed as well as he did. And I'll tell you, the reason for that is the most powerful union in the state of Nevada is the Culinary Workers Union. And for a Democrat, you really need their support if you're going to win an election. And they came out solidly against Bernie because of his Medicare for All plan. And so they ran commercials. They notified their 60,000 plus membership that Bernie was not the candidate of choice. And yet, and the irony of this is, unlike when my father belonged to the Culinary Union 50 years ago, it has changed dramatically demographically, and it's a large Latino population in the Culinary Union, and Latinos like Bernie and supporting them. Also, the demographics in Nevada are very interesting because we attract retirees, and there's a lot of young people. And young people tend to support Bernie, and members of the Latino Hispanic community support Bernie as well. So that combination, I think, inured to his benefit. I don't think it, I know it. It inured to their benefit, to his benefit.
Bernie has been organizing heavily this campaign in Latino communities, such as the ones in Nevada, and it appears to be benefiting him.
Also, it helped that we had early voting because, we're still a caucus state, and I suspect this is the last election we're going to be a caucus state because it was, I got to my polling place, did early voting the first day of early voting in Nevada. So my husband and I showed up at our polling place around a half hour before it opened. There was already a very large line. It took us 3 hours to get to the head of the line so that we could actually cast our vote. And a lot of people started leaving because that was a long time to wait in line. My son had a similar experience. He and his wife went over to the local high school across from their home, and they were in line for 2 hours before they even got in the door. So early voting didn't go as smoothly as people had planned. And then at the end, when caucus day came, the remainder of those that were going to get out and vote got out and vote. But when you have to wait in line for 3 hours, it's much better to be young than old. It was not easy standing there for 3 hours.
That is so true, which is one argument against having caucuses.
Oh, I could think of a million arguments. I think they really have outlived their usefulness. It was great. And when we first started caucusing, it was a lot of fun and everybody sat in a circle. And that was, I think it was the Obama-Clinton campaign was the first caucus Nevada had. And it was so much early caucus because we became an early caucus state. There's a lot of attention on the state of Nevada, but it was fun, and the Bernie people sat on one side of the room and the Clinton people sat on the other, and you were giving speeches and trying to persuade people to come over to your side, and you knew a lot of people in the room. Things have changed dramatically, and it just didn't work as well this time. And Iowa was actually obviously a disaster. I think they're still counting.
Irony, and a month later, it's almost Super Tuesday. The co-winner of Iowa has withdrawn from the race.
Yeah.
And presumably he ran out of campaign funds.
I think he's got a great future. This wasn't his year, but I know from the time that I saw him in Nevada, Buttigieg, that he was articulate and thoughtful, made a good presentation, a veteran, and I think he's got a great future in this country.
I agree. I got a similar impression of him when he did a taping of the Axe Files here last fall.
Yeah, it's an impressive fellow.
That he is.
Mm-hmm.
You alluded to Nevada's status as an early state in the process, alongside Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina being relatively recent. My understanding is that of these states, Nevada is demographically by far the most representative of the broader electorate. I wondered if you could comment on that.
I believe that's correct. We're the most rural and the most urban state at the same time in the country. We have a growing Latino population. I can tell you from my congressional district that I represented for 7 terms. When I started, the Latino population was relatively low, and not a lot of votes came from the precincts that were in the, for lack of a better word, barrio. By the time I left Congress 7 terms later, 42% of my congressional district was Hispanic. That's the urban core of Las Vegas. That is a huge jump. So I had 42% Hispanic, about 11% African American, 6% Asian, and the rest Caucasian. So that demographics are changing very rapidly in the state of Nevada.
And I imagine that's a good part of why Nevada has moved from a Republican-leaning state to a Democratic-leaning state over the past decade or so.
Yes, it without a doubt. I would say it's a purple towards blue state, but becoming increasingly bluer. The legislature, both houses of our legislature are not only Democratic, but a majority of women are serving in the Nevada state legislature. Our Supreme Court has a majority of women, and I know the makeup of the Supreme Court very well because I took the bar exam with most of them that are now Supreme Court judges, which is astonishing sometimes. And they are probably now, of course, they're nonpartisan if they're judges, but I know their political leanings. Both senators are not only women, but Democrats, and 3 out of the 4 members of the House of Representatives are Democrats. And so the representation is pretty strong on the Democratic side. Governor, most of the constitutional offices, with the exception of one, Secretary of State, are all Democrats.
If I recall correctly, former Senator Harry Reid built up a strong Democratic operation in the state, especially in Clark County, the Vegas area, which is 3/4 of the state population.
Absolutely correct. I have a great Harry story. As a matter of fact, he's coming to dinner at my house on Saturday evening, this coming Saturday. When I was a high school senior, it was 1968, and it's an election year. There were these 2 young guys running for the Nevada State Assembly for the first time. One of them was former Senator Richard Bryan. The other one was Harry Reid. And as they were young, and I was, I think, all of 17 at the time, but I started walking precincts for the 2 of them. So I've known Harry Reid since I was 17 years old. What people don't always recognize about him is 30 years later, I started running for office. I was in the Nevada State Assembly since 1983. And then I ran for a series of offices, culminating in my congressional service. But 30 years after I first walked precincts for him in 1968, I was running for Congress, and both he and former Senator Dick Bryan were walking precincts for me. And I think that's what makes Harry Reid such a unique politician, is that not only did he have extraordinary power, and not only did he have amazing ability to raise money, but he never forgot where he came from, and he never forgot his friends. And I think that really made a difference in his career.
As China's role grows greater on the global stage, you want to stay up to date on the issues most pressing to China both domestically and internationally. Check out the Just China podcast for in-depth analysis on recent headlines and investigative reports on Chinese matters that affect our globalized world. We are Just China. Find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your podcast listening.
When you were in office, you were a superdelegate to the Democratic National Convention.
I was.
Are you still a superdelegate?
No. I think it's time for other people to take our place. I have an aversion to politicians that don't know when they're done. When I finished my service in Congress, one of my closest friends took my seat in Congress. And I was invited to a number of events that she was at, and I came to the conclusion that there can only be one Congresswoman at a time. And so I took a step back because I didn't think it was my place. Same thing with the National Convention. First convention I was a delegate at was the 1972 convention, where I was a McGovern delegate to the 72 Miami convention.